Ampire. The NFL draft is upon us, and so we're going to give you a sneak peek to what this thing could all look like. What's up, everybody? It's Mike Jones. Thanks for coming back for another episode of the Football Jones podcast. You can read me at usatoday.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByMikeJones. And yes, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the NFL draft is finally here, and there's been lots of talk. We've had lots of guests, lots of debate about the quality of these players and where they belong in the rankings. Well, now I'm going to give you a treat because I'm joined by my USA Today colleagues, all of us who covered the NFL for our outlet. That's me, Jarret Bell, Jori Epstein, Nate Davis, Lorenzo Reyes, and Michael Middlehurst-Schwartz. We're all going to team up and give you a mock draft. Give you a little sneak peek on how this whole thing could unfold. It's going to be a lot of fun, some interesting perspectives and insight. And so, let's get to it right now. Okay, and here we are, very happy to be joined by my USA Today NFL gang, the whole gang here that covers the NFL. We have, in the order, well, I'll just go with the names first. The elder statesman, the senior, most longest tenured of the group, Jarret Bell.
What's up?
How you doing, JB?
Hey.
All right. Then we have, I guess, is Nate next as far as tenure at USA Today?
Nate is next.
Nate's next. Good deal. Then MMS, is that right?
Yeah, that's
Mike
me.
Middlehurst-Schwartz, you guys have probably seen his mock drafts. He's like the Swiss Army knife, writer, editor, planner, strategic, all that stuff. Pulls the strings, travel planning, and assigning. He does it all.
Just say the glue.
The glue.
The glue.
And a new dad at the same time. So,
Yeah.
this draft stuff is just like small carrots for him. Then we have Lorenzo Reyes.
That's right.
And you've heard his voice before. And Jori.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here with all y'all.
Yeah, so we are like spanning the country really because JB is outside the DC area. Nate, you're in sort of the Northern Virginia. No, you're in DC, right?
We moved across the river for the little man, so we're in Arlington now.
Okay, Arlington. Lorenzo's up in New York. I'm in Delaware. MMS is out in LA, out in Cali.
Yeah.
All right, and Jori's down in Texas, Dallas.
That we are.
There we are. Okay, so we are going to get going with our round one Football Jones mock draft. Because there's no intrigue for the first two picks, that's on auto pick. So we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Trevor Lawrence, and the Jets are taking Zach Wilson. We've known that for weeks. And so the order from there, I drew it out of a hat. Well, after I got the first pick, because it's my podcast. I've got the 49ers. I'm picking. Then next up will be Jarret Bell, picking for Atlanta. MMS has got Cincinnati at number 5. Nate is picking for the Dolphins at number 6. Lorenzo for Detroit at number 7. And then Jori picking at number 8 for Carolina, and we'll keep on rolling. So we are going to get going. So the first two picks out of the way, the third pick, the pick of intrigue. I really want to make Justin Fields the third pick. I think that's who should be picked. I think just from a standpoint of athleticism and potential, toughness, leadership, I think he's the best pick. But I'm going to go with Mac Jones because I know that Kyle Shanahan really likes him. Kyle Shanahan values smarts and discipline and somebody who will run his system over athleticism. So I think it's a bit of a stretch. Maybe he's got a higher floor, but not as high a ceiling. But Kyle believes in his system. And so Mac Jones is going to be the third overall pick for the San Francisco 49ers. And now up next, the Atlanta Falcons, picking for them, Jarret Bell.
Yeah, so it already seems like the mock draft has gone off the rails with that pick, Mike. Okay. So, wow, now we got to pick it up from there. Yeah, the Falcons. I mean, we might have a trade here. Somebody wants to move up to get Justin Fields, or could the Falcons even pick him? You know, he's from Marietta, Georgia. But for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to give the Falcons this tight end from Florida that I've been hearing so much about, Kyle Pitts. So we know the Falcons have great receivers, and Julio obviously still there, Calvin Ridley. Matt Ryan's got at least a couple more years, you'd think, of health and being able to be productive. So what does he need? He needs some protection too. But right now, let's go Kyle Pitts at number 4 with the Falcons.
Good deal. I like that pick. I agree with you. Unless somebody trades up there, that's a good spot right there. And so now number 5, Cincinnati Bengals, MMS.
Yeah, I'm a little bit split here, as the Bengals might be between Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase. I think it's a tough pick for them. They need help at both spots. I've been a Sewell guy for a long time now. Love what he did at Oregon, but I'm going to go with Chase here for the Bengals. Obviously, they have that built-in chemistry with Joe Burrow. You can maybe find a lineman on day 2, good depth in this class. But most of all, I want to see what this forces Nate to do, which I'm sure is also a big concern of the Bengals.
Very much so. Okay. All right, Nate, you're on the clock. Miami Dolphins. What you got?
Well, Mike, you haven't told anyone yet that I grew up a Jets fan, but I will try to do my best here for the Miami Dolphins and make an upstanding pick for them, because that's what upstanders do. Anyway, the Dolphins, I think, are kind of in a weird spot here. Obviously they started out this process at number 3 with the Houston Texans pick, and then down to 12, and then back up to 6. And you kind of wonder if they thought at 6 all along, they thought they would get Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase. But it seems like as the dominoes have fallen, in this mock draft and others and out in the real world too, they might not get either one of those guys at 6. Chris Greer did say that, they like somebody at 6 all along, which is probably what he ought to be saying. But you wonder if they'll trade back here. If the Broncos or somebody else might come up for a quarterback at this spot, particularly if the Dolphins decide that they'd rather get out, take Jalen Waller, Devontae Smith on the board. But I'm going to take Penei Sewell here.
Okay.
And MMS, mentioned him, just a pick ago. But the Dolphins traded Eric Flowers yesterday, and they're apparently going to move Robert Hunt to guard, and that's going to open up a tackle spot. Really, this whole process is about finding ways to help make life easier for Tua Tagovailoa. And a great way to do that is to take the most gifted tackle prospect in this board. Some people have gone off the reservation and compared Sewell to Anthony Munoz. That's a bit too much, but I think he could be a really good player. He's only 20 years old, Outland Trophy winner at 19. And I think he's one of the few really blue chip probably guys that can't miss in this draft. So we'll go Sewell number 6 to Miami.
That's smart, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I understand, but I kind of want to give him Devontae Smith. I just feel like, you can't count on Will Fuller to stay healthy. He needs weapons. I know he needs to stay upright, but I get where you're going there.
It's a totally fair consideration to say Waddle or Devontae Smith, particularly since both of those guys played with Tua. Though I think Devontae did say he preferred playing with Mac Jones, but they've got Devontae Parker there. You mentioned Will Fuller. It is certainly a fair consideration to give him the wide out. But considering the injuries that Tua's already dealt with, the fact that he is a guy that moves around a little bit and maybe opens himself up to some of that stuff, I think you got to give him the bodyguard, particularly in the shape that line's in at this point, and that's the route I'm going to go on this one.
All right. Oh, we'll go with that. All right, Lorenzo, on the clock for the Detroit Lions at number 7.
And this is interesting. I fully was ready to take Trey Lance here, was ready to go. And I know the Lions have other needs, but Justin Fields is sitting there. If I'm Dan Campbell, I get that they're trying with Jared Goff. They're gonna make it a good faith effort here, but you have a new regime. We saw what Anthony Lynn did with Justin Herbert last year. I think the pick here has to be Justin Fields, right? They need to at least take a swing here and try to get their franchise quarterback. And I think that's what they do. if the board sets up this way. I like Lance, but the thing is his sample size is just so small. I think there's just so much that's unknown about him. But honestly, I think for some reason, I think a lot of people are sleeping on Justin Fields. I just love how he's basically, he can hit the passes at every level. He generates great arm strength using his entire body, his lower body. He's tough. I mean, we saw in the Sugar Bowl what happened with, he gets popped against Clemson, goes to the sideline, gets a shot, comes back, and then lights up for 4 touchdowns. He's smart. They probably want him to use his legs a little bit more. He actually doesn't use them enough, but he's a pocket passer. I think he'll have to maybe get quicker, try to process things more quickly.
Didn't he run like a 4.340?
Yeah, no, he's crazy athletic, but he just doesn't. I think he would rather sit in the pocket and make passes. That's his style, and I like that. I don't mind that, but I think you watch some of his film and he probably took more hits, took more sacks than he needed to, where he was like, well, I have this incredible arm strength. I have this great team around me. I'll just wait until the last second, fire a pass, and then take a pop. I think in the NFL, when you have, the athletes coming down your neck like that, it's a little bit different. I think they'll want him to be more judicious about all that. But honestly, if I'm the Lions and Justin Fields is here, I'm thrilled. All the other needs that they have be damned, because that's the most important position. So, yeah. All
right, there we go. Justin Fields didn't slide too far. Again, he should be number 3, but oh well. So there we are, number 8, Jori, on the clock for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, for the Carolina Panthers at 8, let's go Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle out of Northwestern. Might not be as exciting as some of these other picks, but I like what Matt Rule started in year 1. I think he needs a little more stability to build with it in year 2. The more protection, the more you can take advantage of tools like Christian McCaffrey. And let's give Sam Darnold a chance to do something in the NFL. Let's get him out of the Jets and give him a little more security. So we are going with Rashawn Slater.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So now we are up at number 9. I'm on the clock for the Denver Broncos, and I'm taking, the phone just rang. No, hey, I really would not be surprised if we see the New England Patriots jump up. But for this here, I will say Denver's staying here, and I'll take Trey Lance. Now, I feel like if Justin Fields slides past there, the Patriots jump up there. If Trey Lance is there, I'm not so sure, just because he's such a project and there's so many unknowns about him. So the Patriots might be calling the 49ers to get Jimmy G. If Justin Fields and Mac Jones are both gone. But the Denver Broncos, we will go with Trey Lance, because John Elway, he's feeling the pressure. At least they can sell some hope. Drew Lock really, it just isn't. I don't think he's not getting it done. But at least you can roll with him for one more year while Trey Lance learns and is developed. I was told his best football is probably 2 or 3 years ahead of him. But for now, the Broncos get the quarterback that they needed there at number 9. And we're going to go back to Jori at number 10, since you were based in Dallas and are at the, covering the Cowboys all the time. So Jori, you are on the clock.
If the Cowboys back at 10 are going with Patrick Surtain out of Alabama, it's going to be a toss-up. I think they really like J.C. Horn too. They love both, but this defense needs an upgrade, historically bad in 2020. And I think that if there was a really elite offensive tackle like Sewell or Slater left at 10, I would have considered that, because you got to protect Dak Prescott if you want this offense moving. But other than that, I love the idea of reuniting Alabama cornerbacks Trayvon Diggs and Patrick Surtain. I think that with Dan Quinn as the defensive coordinator, they've got the stability they need to remedy some of the problems from last year. But at some point, Dan Quinn needs the talent, and Patrick Surtain is going to be able to upgrade that secondary in a way that they really need it.
Support for this podcast comes from PayPal. Small business owners, turn your smartphone into a cash register. PayPal QR codes are the safe and easy way to get paid in store, and they deliver the same security and trust PayPal is known for online, in person. Even if you're a cash-only business, with PayPal QR codes, you can accept credit or debit with everyday low fees. There's no additional hardware or software needed. Generate your unique QR code from the PayPal app and display it on your device or print it to display in store. Customers scan your code with their PayPal app. You only need your smartphone. Learn more at paypal.com/us/getQRcode.
Ampire Media is excited to announce a new partnership with the fastest growing daily fantasy sports site on the planet, Monkey Knife Fight. And to kick off this venture on the right foot, our partners at Monkey Knife Fight are giving all of my listeners a free $5 game when they create their account and a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 when you use the promo code JONES to make your first deposit. It's a lot of fun. There's all kinds of prop bet contests with all kinds of different sports. I really like the NBA, and so you can do what I like is the more or less competition. For instance, you take a matchup like the Wizards versus the Lakers, and I pick two players, whether Bradley Beal is going to score 31 points or more or less, or Anthony Davis going head to head is going to score 21.5 points more or less. You know, Bradley Beal has been on fire. Taking the more might be smart. Anthony Davis knocking off some rust still. Taking the less for him might make sense. But it's a lot of fun. Go on there, learn more about it, and claim your free game plus the instant deposit match up to $100 by heading to monkeyknifefight.com and use the code JONES. That's play at monkeyknifefight.com/Jones. Get on there, join the action. Okay, that brings us to number 11. MMS and the New York Giants are on the clock.
Yeah, I'm going to make a decidedly Dave Gettleman-like move here and go with whatever the opposite of a hog molly is and take Jalen Waddle, the speedy receiver from Alabama. I know that he might want to boost that pass rush, but there's no one really worth that slot here. I think that could be an option if he trades back, but he's obviously never done that in his career. And really, the Giants have pretty much a mandate to improve things for Daniel Jones. And they did bring on Kenny Golladay, so there might be some resistance toward drafting another receiver, but he's a contested catch guy. And Waddle is the kind of guy who can, take those slants and screens and really pick up, a ton of yards after the catch and make life easier for Daniel Jones. So I think he makes a lot of sense for them here.
I like that. I agree with you there. Yeah, for sure. All right. So then we got number 12, Philadelphia Eagles and Nate.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot for the Eagles, obviously, and I wonder if they're another team that might trade down. I mean, the Eagles haven't been trying since the second half against Washington in the end of the regular season. They already moved down from 6-1, so I think that they're really already looking towards 2022. They'll have the 2 first-round picks next year if Carson Wentz stays on his feet in Indy. But the thinking goes is that they're going to try to build this thing around Jalen Hurts, or at least give him a shot. So I think in this scenario, as much as I like J.C. Horn and they need cornerbacks there, we'll go ahead and give him Devontae Smith. Again, another guy Jalen Hurts knows well from the Bama days. Certainly the best player on the board. So I think you're getting good value with this kind of pick. Jalen Hurts is a guy you have to account for defensively with a spy or whatever. I mean, you can't do that and double cover Devontae, et cetera. And maybe this helps make the Jalen Reagor pick from last year look better if you've got him in more of a number 2 role and Devontae in a number 1 role. So I talked to Isaac Bruce about this guy. Devontae, he said that he'll be fine. You jam him once or twice with a big NFL corner, that's fine. And when he beats you for 2 touchdowns, you're not going to do that anymore. So I think he'll be a good player, and this should be a good combo with Jalen Hurts moving forward.
All right. So the Eagles got their pick. Now the Chargers are on the board at number 13. Lorenzo, what you got?
So I was hoping that Rashawn Slater falls here, but I think the Chargers shouldn't be disappointed if at least they can come away with Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. I think he's one of these players that he's just solid, consistent. He's, for his size, he's a great athlete. And, the Chargers, with them having, a transition with the coaching staff, and I think their objective here is going to be to protect Justin Herbert. And they've already done that really in free agency, adding Corey Linsley, a few other pieces. So I think this kind of completes their objective here, but they do have other needs. I just feel like Darrisaw is a player that you can plug in and play day one and, automatically gives them help at a position of need. So I just think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. I know there were some teams a little further down who were hoping he would slide.
Yeah.
So won't be happy about this. But all right, here we go with Minnesota at number 14. JB, back on the clock.
Yeah, so he just took the guy that I had pegged in there at the 14th slot. So based on that, yeah, we're talking 3 tackles in the first 13 picks. I mean, this is the draft that was going to be defined by the quarterbacks and some of the top receivers. But as typically happens in these situations, the linemen, and as Lorenzo talked about with Darrisaw, plug and play, you got to have them. So that's interesting. So that's forcing me to adjust, and I'm going to go for Minnesota with J.C. Horn, cornerback. Okay, and I think the basis being that's the best available player on the board right now. I mean, you could also make the case for Micah Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State. But yeah, I think that this is how we're going to see this thing flow, as well as, one or more of these quarterbacks may slide down, or of course we'll have some trade action to come in and muck it up a little bit. But for the purposes here, J.C. Horn, you're a Viking.
All right,
I like
there
it,
we
JB,
go.
J.C. Horn with Mike Zimmer, and learning from Patrick Peterson for a year. That'd be a great pick.
Yeah.
I just want to know, has USA Today Sports always been known for its offensive line affinity, or is this a newer trend?
Well, I mean,
Always.
we're all about protecting the investment we have in our quarterbacks, so that's what it's about. We know what's the most important position on the field, and we got to protect those guys.
This
All
set
right.
it up nicely for the Patriots, right?
I know, right? So now here they are at 15, and unfortunately, we didn't jump up and get that deal done to take care of Justin Fields. So we'll call and give that maybe a 2nd-round pick to the 49ers to get Jimmy G. They've just been so bad at drafting wide receivers. So maybe I'm going to give them Rashawn Bateman from Minnesota. He's not, a top, the elite of this draft class, but I really think that he's going to be a good wide receiver. They need more playmakers in that offense, no matter who the quarterback is. I truthfully would like to see Cam Newton kind of rebound from last year. It would be interesting to see how that goes there if they don't get Jimmy G. But whoever the quarterback is, he's got to have somebody to throw to. And so I'm going with Bateman there at number 15. So,
Mike, do you really buy Jimmy G back to the Patriots, though? I mean, if they've gone with Cam Newton, I mean, you can't toggle between those two guys, and the Patriots value their guys in the field, and Jimmy G's been on the field for 1 year. I get the romance of it, and that they used to like him, but you think that they really pull the trigger on that?
Well, I mean, that is a very good point. And I mean, they committed to Cam, and Bill Belichick was throughout all the struggles last year, every week was asked about it, and he stuck with Cam. So maybe not, but it just seems like, man, I thought Jimmy G would be perfect to play this year while you groom Trey Lance or Justin Fields. But since they go with Mac Jones, they don't really need him. Where else does he have good familiarity that could enable Bill Belichick to keep on, bounce back quickly, not have to change a whole lot? I know they had modifications with Cam, but they could roll back to what they were running. But again, that's
like you said about that phone call. I just like the idea that they stay aggressive in free agency and maybe come up for Justin Fields, because that's the perfect guy to bring behind Cam Newton. So I kind of,
exactly.
I don't think the world is ready for another Patriots reign, but that seems like that would be a sensible way for them to go.
Yeah,
What about Mac Jones?
Well, if he's there, I think it's perfect, because Bill Belichick's best friend is the one who's coached and developed him and everything. And they got, good familiarity. If he knows any of the inside and outs about this guy, it'd be great. Bill Belichick is okay with a guy whose arm strength isn't, the greatest. But if the guy can run his system, know where to have the ball, have the timing and the consistency, then that's great. But I don't think Mac Jones will be there. I mean, if I'm planning this thing out, Justin Fields goes number 3, and then the Patriots jump up and get Mac Jones. But the sounds of things,
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan's super high on this guy from, talking to people. So it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to a lot of people around the league, but that looks like that's where they're going.
The thing that's interesting there too is that with 1 and 2 more or less like locked up, you really don't need to have that smoke screen. Like you don't. There's no reason. I mean, they can just be quiet or whatever. But yeah, it's funny. Mac Jones, like I don't want this to sound like he's Tom Brady, but you watch him play and it's a very, very similar aesthetic. And, I think in an ideal scenario, the Patriots do want that. But I think that's interesting when I think with the Jimmy Garoppolo, a draft day trade there would be, I feel like it's pretty complicated given his contract, the no trade. And I think, the Patriots, I think he would welcome that. But a lot of people, I just have a hard time seeing Jimmy being, a guy that like when they're on the clock, like, hey, Jimmy's available. Can we make that happen? I feel like that trade might have to, there would have to be some discussions.
It could be Sunday when it happens.
Right.
We'll see. And they've been talking, if they're going to do it, they've been talking about it already.
Right.
So, you can pull the trigger on that. Now, the Patriots, and not to beat up on Mike's pick, but the Patriots and a receiver, my goodness.
They've got to get one.
That would be, but they got some guys in free agency, so okay. But drafting a rookie receiver, I think a Belichick move here, if he doesn't get his quarterback, would be to draft a guard, a defensive tackle, an inside linebacker. I mean, something that is not as sexy. So
edge rusher.
Pardon me.
Edge rusher, maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah. Well, if there's a guy that's really, really worth it at that spot, but again, I just think Belichick move here is kind of like, okay, who's that inside linebacker? But we'll see.
Mind your own business and worry about your Cardinals, JB.
Exactly.
Your Cardinals are on the board. Leave
alone. Yeah. They've been taking phone calls too, right? So I'm gonna go with I don't know. I could go with the other cornerback.
I just like to say that sums up how I feel about all of my picks.
So we could go with the cornerback or the running back. So I'll go with the cornerback. Craig Newsome out of Northwestern, but I could be talked out of that too. So you can make me your best offer.
Yeah, the Raiders are a little bit hard to peg here. We've obviously seen Mike Mayock and John Gruden break from consensus, to put it nicely, when it comes to their top picks. I think based on the way they blew up their offensive line this offseason, they still need a right tackle, need to provide that support for both the run game and Derek Carr. I think Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State makes a lot of sense here. Again, he might not rank as high on some other people's boards, and they obviously need defense. Could look at linebacker. Micah Parsons is sliding here, but I think there's really a void at right tackle there, and Tevin Jenkins, I think fits that Mike Mayock bill of a road grader and all those other great draftisms we're accustomed to hearing from him.
Okay. All right. So then that puts the Dolphins are back on the clock there, Nate.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go back with the best available player on the board here thing, and that's probably going to be Micah Parsons. And Brian Flores coming from the Bill Belichick school. This is a guy you can do a lot of things with. He could cover, he can rush the passer. He's certainly stout against the run. He's a big guy with 4.3, 4.4 speed. And inside linebacker is a bit of an issue with the Dolphins. They just got rid of Kyle Van Noy. I think Micah Parsons would certainly be a plus over him. Talent-wise, he's definitely an outgoing guy who's had some issues there with his teammates at Penn State, so they'd have to rein that in. But this is probably the right environment with the structure Brian Flores has in place. So I'm not sure it's a need per se here, but given the value of the player at 18, I can't pass him up.
And Lorenzo in Washington, who could have maybe used a quarterback, but all the top guys are gone. They do need a lot of things. Where are you going with this at number 19?
Honestly, I think they're probably so bummed that Micah Parsons goes off the board right in front of them, because if he's available, I think he has to be the pick. But with Nate taking him, I think that they need production out of the linebacker position. There's no question. They just have not had consistency there. So I think you give them Jeremiah Wusu-Koromora, and he's not necessarily the biggest or most like physically gifted player you want at the position, but I think he's someone who's at least versatile. He can cover, he can help in the run game. He has at least enough range where he can go all over the field, and they need that. I mean, they have a pretty solid group on the front, but behind them, they really lack playmakers at that second level. So I think, again, the Micah Parsons thing hurts, because Micah Parsons would be just an excellent fit there. So I think they're happy with this, but not as happy as it could have been.
Lorenzo,
Right.
I'm proud you have taken your guy and forced you into taking a bum from Notre Dame.
Yeah, I wanted to. The thing is, I have this draft board here, and I kept putting like Rashawn Slater was on there, Greg Newsome was down there for like later, and I keep going to players that from the schools that I went to, and I'm like, well, people are gonna think you're a homer here, but
For our audience, Lorenzo is an Irish guy, so
yeah. I went to school and I got all 4 of the Charlie Weiss years, so that was that.
All right. So Jori at number 20 with the Chicago Bears.
I just wouldn't want to take anyone other than an offensive lineman, and people think that we are losing interest in that position. So I think we're going to go Elijah Vera-Tucker out of USC. I also think that, there are different ways we can address this. And in an ideal world, we would let Nate Davis and our colleague Nancy Armour go back to the 2017 draft and just start it from there rather than going to 2021. But that doesn't seem to be the reality we're operating in. So let's give, whether it's Andy Dalton or anyone else, a little bit of help in that offense in Chicago, and then perhaps a quarterback is coming soon, and there will be a little more stability along that offensive line.
This show can be found on Podcast DC, the new local app with hundreds of options and local news, health, and of course, of the DMV region. Download the Podcast DC app to hear all of the Empire shows, as well as other great content. All right, so there's another lineman gone, and the Indianapolis Colts are on the board at number 21. And I feel like they need an offensive lineman as well to protect Carson Wentz, because Frank Reich knows that Wentz is at his best when he is being protected. And a lot of good guys have gone, but I'm going to go Oklahoma State's Alex Leatherwood, I think. I'm sorry. Alex Leatherwood from Alabama. Have him, plug him in there and keep the quarterback upright. So another offensive lineman off the board. Tennessee Titans at 22, JB.
This would be a good trade spot if you want to move up to get like Trey Lance. But anyway, sticking with the board, they need an edge rusher, right? Okay, so I'll give them Kwity Paye. Is that how you pronounce it, or is it Paye? Yep. Or kid from Michigan? Yeah, and so Jadeveon Clowney didn't quite work out for the Titans last year. They could go receiver here as well, but I think if you can get somebody for the trenches to rush the passer, you could probably find a receiver a little bit later. So, and it's not like they're coverage bare at receiver, right? So, let's go with the edge rusher for the Titans. Mike Vrabel, defense.
There you go. All right, and Nate, you get to pick for your beloved Jets now for the first time since kind of robbed you of that honor at number 2. There he goes with his Jets hat. Where are we going?
Yeah, this is interesting. I was just about to, JB pulled a Nate and took my guy Kwity Paye. I was going to give Robert Saleh a pass rusher there and try to help him recreate what he did in San Francisco with the rotation of guys up there. The Jets did get Carl Lawson free agency, which should help. And there are other guys they could take here. The Miami guys, Jalen Phillips, Greg Rousseau. and others. But I'm going to go with Najee Harris, the Alabama running back here at 23. And the Jets do pick again at 34. So some of these other guys, I think maybe they could get a little later. But I think if you want the best running back in the draft, and that's what Najee Harris is in my estimation, he's probably not getting past the Steelers right behind me at 24. And I think it's with almost Sam Darnold, the best way to maybe help a rookie quarterback with Zach Wilson is to give him a running back who can both run the ball, who can pass protect, and could catch a lot of balls out of the backfield. I mean, Najee Harris does it all. He can bring to this team what Le'Veon Bell did not bring to this team. So I'm going to support my young quarterback and get a guy that I don't think is necessarily going to be there when I pick again at 34.
Okay. All right. And now Pittsburgh at 24, MMS.
Yeah, when you told us that you were randomizing the picks, my first thought for whatever reason was, please don't give me the Steelers. And of course, here we are. And I say that because I just have such a hard time reconciling what this team needs, which is offensive line. Seems like that is a more Steelers-like move than taking a first-round running back, with the fact that there's really not anyone on the board, especially as this first round panned out, who is worthy of that spot. And then, of course, Nate had to throw a wrench into it by taking Harris one spot ahead of me. So this is a tough position. I think the best thing with Harris off the board is to take Landon Dickerson from Alabama, the center. He's not the franchise blindside left tackle, and he has the torn ACL that he's recovering from, but he very much fits the profile of a Kevin Colbert pick. And I think that if Harris is off the board, then I think it's too hard for them to look at other running backs, and they really need to look at the offensive linemen that are available. And they may have to do that even if Harris is available.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered if they would try to jump up to draft a quarterback. If one of these guys started to slide because they don't really have a real successor for Big Ben. But I agree with you that, getting an offensive lineman right now for Big Ben might be more important. Maybe we can get a guy in the second round to help address that. Or, I guess there's a chance that Dwayne Haskins could develop but I like that pick of going offensive line since all the quarterbacks are out the way there. But there are still some talented quarterbacks, just not the elite level guys. So we'll see how that plays out. And now Jacksonville is on the board again at number 25. And Lorenzo, get that pick.
This is a really, really interesting spot, I think, because with Trevor locked in, I think Urban Meyer is going to want to say, well, do we give him weapons? Do we protect him with an offensive lineman? Or do we build maybe bolster our defensive line, which has had a lot of departures over the past couple of seasons. So I could see them going in so many ways, but with Trevor being the pick, I really think that Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss is a fit here. He can play in the slot. He's, obviously athletic enough to I think you could plug him in right away. And I could see him maybe dropping a little bit after this, but I just think once you have Trevor in the building, you're going to want to put pieces around him. And the Jaguars, they've lacked some talent at skill positions. So I'm kind of conflicted here, though. I could be talked out of this, but I feel like if you want some sizzle, you got Trevor. Give him at least a weapon he could play with.
Agree. All right, Jori and the Cleveland Browns at number 26.
Yeah, I think that I am excited to see about what the defenseman Jalen Phillips could do with Myles Garrett in Cleveland. I think that there's so much potential for how they could wreck from either side of the defensive line. And at the same point, I think that when you look at a guy like Phillips, who both physically and in different ways has had some ups and downs in his career, I actually think not to give Myles Garrett too much credit, because there have been some really troubling incidents, as someone like Myles, who came in with what seemed to be like a very strong character, but had a setback and had to really reckon with that, could be a good mentor for him in Cleveland. Pair that with an offense that really has a lot of talent and a organization that I think is just stabler than it's been in decades. And I like what Jalen Phillips could do there.
And I mean, he's a guy that, I mean, I think that's good value there at 26, because he's a guy that could have possibly go in the teens, maybe. But that's good there. And I mean, they have Clowney, but we can't count on really Clowney on holding up. So getting another.
He's just a year, and the New York Giants have always taught us that you can't have enough pass rushers.
Right. And I think when you've got Lamar in the division, and if you want to get where you want to go as the Browns, I mean, you're going to have to get past Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I think that he will really help bring them to the next level, taking down those foes. Slay the beasts.
All right. And so now at 27 is the Baltimore Ravens on the clock. I'm picking for them. And I feel like they need a pass rusher as well. They lost guys in free agency. I'm going to go with George's Aziz, and I can always struggle to pronounce him, Aguilar. But I feel like he is a guy that can come in there. He's got great athleticism, great body. Maybe he's not quite as tall or long as some guys, but I just really think that he's going to be a guy that's going to cause a lot of damage in the NFL. So they definitely need pass rushers in their offense. I mean, their defense. They've got good guys up front in their defensive line to cause pressure for offenses, and they've got good guys in the secondary. They need pass rushers. So that's my pick there for the Baltimore Ravens. And that brings us to number 28, the Saints and JB.
Yeah. So run on pass rushers, huh? Something just tells me, it makes just keep popping in my mind with the Saints. And obviously Trey Lance is long gone now. Mm-hmm. But when we talk about teams that might want to move up for a Trey Lance, I wouldn't rule out the Saints. Of course, like I said, he's not here right now, but we've got Lance going to Denver. They obviously need a quarterback there, but this might not be the Saints pick before when we get to Thursday night. Maybe they've moved up to get Trey Lance, but for the purposes of this exercise,
JB, remember that Sean Payton was apparently going to go get Patrick Mahomes in 2017, and then he got jumped, so they could do it again.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I think, knowing their situation right now, obviously a guy who might take a couple of years to develop, I think that would be a perfect spot for him. So that would be the one team that I would say, okay, maybe this is one not to, to completely sleep on. But back to the pass rusher thing. They need one of those too. So now I'm going to do a major reach because I like Phillips. Jori stole that pick. Okay, I liked him there, but the Saints lost Trey Hendrickson, and Cam Jordan's not getting any younger. So I'll make, maybe this is a reach, but I'm intrigued by Gregory Rousseau. Yeah, the guy from Miami. Rousseau.
Miami, I'm sure you're fine.
Yeah, I'll put him there. I mean, what the heck? And yeah, reaching, that's kind of what we do here. In this draft war room, we reach, okay? So that's my pick for the Saints, just knowing that they need an impact player on the front seven.
Okay, big board expert MMS, what do you think? Is that a big reach there?
I think based on his value a little bit, I think the Saints are a good team just in that, they can afford to gamble a little bit on his upside. I mean, Rousseau's just a guy who's hard to pin down because he was so promising in 2019, his lone year in college, 15 and a half sacks. But he's a guy who's a former high school wide receiver and safety who, when you watch him, I mean, he's basically just using his length, and he's especially, just kind of going and crashing inside and beating college guards and centers. And he's not really, beating offensive tackles in the way you'd expect a defensive end would. So I think he has to come up with a little bit more of a pass rush plan. He has to get more powerful because he's not going to be able to just kind of will his way past these guys with his, long arms the way he did in college. I think returning last year would have, really helped him, playing opposite Phillips and Quincy Roche. But I think that there's, solid shot that he ends up in the first round. It wouldn't surprise me if he slid to the second. But you look at those teams like the Saints and Buccaneers, and yeah, they're probably in a little bit more of a better position to, bet on his upside for the long term.
Okay.
Super smart kid too, and he's working with Chuck Smith, so I think he's going to work out a lot of these technique issues. And when you're playing with a super smart guy like Cam Jordan, that can only help your career get off to a good start, I think.
All right. And so you're actually on the clock now for the Packers MMS. What are you going there?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers might not be happy with me after this, but I'm going to give them a linebacker in Tulsa's Zaven Collins. Look, I mean, the Packers have to draft a wide receiver somewhat early here. They don't. All of their wide receivers are set to be free agents in 2022. So that just for the sake of getting someone in there to, give them some, even level on their calendar, they need to find someone. But I think they can do that on day two. And I think we've seen how just the lack of athleticism in the middle of that defense has cost them in big spots. And Collins is a guy who's great in coverage. He's very big, but he's not exactly a thumper. He has, I think untapped pass rushing potential based on how Tulsa used him. So I would go with him here. I don't think that there's a wide receiver worthy of it. I was looking at Elijah Moore a little bit, but he obviously went earlier in the draft to Jacksonville. So I think at this spot, I will go with Collins.
Okay.
Before we move on, I just want to make sure while MMS is still on the clock, are you sure, even though some of the quarterbacks are gone, that there's not a quarterback you want to go with for the Packers?
I'm not going to make Aaron Rodgers that upset.
He would go nuts.
Right, and it might be worth it for that reason alone.
Seriously.
Like, it's not about the game of football. This is for the purpose of Jeopardy fans everywhere.
There we go.
I just love, just quickly, how they drafted a quarterback in the first round and he just goes off and wins the MVP the following season. I mean, how incredible.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Number 30, Buffalo Bills. Nate Davis, where are you going?
Yeah, my roll through the AFC East concludes here, I guess. This is a team I'm not sure really needs anything. They come up obviously short against the Chiefs in the AFC, and you could argue that they're the second or third best team in the conference. I was looking at Greg Rousseau here as well. I think they could get more out of their pass rush. I'm tempted by Javonte Williams, North Carolina running back, because the Bills' best running back last year was Josh Allen. But I'm going to go back to value here on the board and take Virginia Tech cornerback Caleb Farley. He's had the multiple back surgeries over the years, but if you're comfortable with his medical, and this most recent one is maybe not as scary a back surgery as some, you're probably getting the best cornerback on the board here. You don't necessarily have to rush him out and play him week one. If he needs a little bit more time to recover, you got Tre'Davious White and other guys there. But I think if you're looking at value, you can never have enough corners. And if I can get the best one without pressure to play him right away, if he's not ready, I'm okay with that. So I'll go with Caleb Farley.
It's going to be interesting to see how guys like him, other guys with injury, how they make out in this, because they didn't get to have the medicals. I mean, all the extensive examinations like they would have in a normal year. They did have the medical exam day in Indy where they all went to, but it wasn't as extensive. So guys with injuries could slide a little bit. But I think that, he would work well in that defense. And definitely
Drew Rosenhaus says he's getting picked in the middle of the first round. And Drew wouldn't lie about that, right? This is a steal for me.
There you go. All right. Baltimore Ravens, when that pick they got from the Chiefs just recently there. Lorenzo, who are you picking at 31?
So quickly, Alex Leatherwood is off the board, yeah?
Yes.
Ted Jenkins is off the board too.
Yes.
Man, all right. That's tough because I think those are the two players I was eyeing here. They're both pretty solid in the run game. You trade Orlando Brown, you obviously want to find his replacement. I feel like that's their direction they will go here, but with Baltimore now not picking until 94, I could actually see them trading out of this spot maybe, because if this is the way the board sets up, I'm tempted to go with receiver or offensive tackle. I'm kind of talking this out as I'm looking at it here.
I hope
Lorenzo,
that,
you forfeited your pick and the Buccaneers are on the clock.
well, I
I'm
was
s-
thinking that when we put this on the USA Today website, the headline is like USA Today staff collectively picks like NFL record high offensive linemen in the first round. So
Yeah.
Lorenzo, that for this
Yeah, there.
flashy headline that we're all looking for.
With that in mind, Jori, I will not. I was looking at Walker Little out of Stanford, but it's interesting. He had a season-ending injury 2019. He opted out 2020. There really isn't a lot of film on him. I think Baltimore, they have a track record of developing offensive linemen, but I'm going to go with Kadarius Toney, the receiver out of Florida. I just feel like, again, if this is the way the board shapes up, I like the ability of it's just I don't want to reach for an offensive lineman here, and I feel like Lamar Jackson could use some more weapons. And while the receiver class has, at this point, a lot of players are off the board, I think that adding a weapon like this, he's undersized, he has some injury issues, but I think he just has that lateral shiftiness where he can just shed defenders, and you can plug him in the slot. And I think that helps Lamar right away. So I'll go with Toney.
All right. And to wrap it up, Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Jori, number 32.
Yeah, we're going to give them Joe Tryon out of Washington. I think that really upgrade that defense. What I like about him is that the more they can continue to do with their front, the more they're going to be able to help what's a really exciting back group of linebackers and cornerbacks. On top of that, he opted out, so you might want to give him a little bit of time to shake any rust off. And what better way to do that than behind guys like Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul. I think that you don't know what JPP is going to do next offseason. This creates that depth automatically. And really, they can't go so wrong because they just have so many people returning. But I think that would be a good way to give them some defensive stability, really, for the next several years on that front.
All right. And there's our first round. Interesting. Obviously, new quarterbacks will go. A lot of offensive linemen, pass rushers, not a lot of defensive backs. We got a number of wide receivers gone. Any lasting impressions? Anybody from how this shook out for us?
Thing about this draft, Mike, is the way that Zach Wilson is getting compared to Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, and Mac Jones is getting compared to Tom Brady, and Trevor Lawrence is getting compared to Justin Herbert. So I have no idea why the board falls the way it does, but this should be a very interesting draft, and it just tells you how ridiculous making comparisons to these players who you know very little about,
right?
What that's worth.
But you know what, the whole Tom Brady thing, yes, you hear it, but I heard from some people were like, yeah, more like Matt Hasselbeck. For Mac Jones, which could be interesting, and I mean,
you hear Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan too with the whole 49ers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's trading 3 first-round picks for those guys?
Right. Yeah. But if you're Kyle and you really want to get your guy, I mean, he was very creative with RG3, but he really liked how Cousins ran his offense, they made sure they got a stable guy to go behind RG3. So
but I'm with you. I'm with Fields. I mean, none of those guys have gone anywhere at the end of the day, and you lost to a quarterback that could do more in the Super Bowl because Patrick Mahomes could do more. So get a guy like Justin Fields that can do more than just run your offense, that he can do something when the offense breaks down, right? So
in this environment of smoke screens and stuff, I'm still not feeling that the 49ers traded to the third spot for Mac Jones. Okay, I just have a hard time believing that. So I think Fields might be that guy that they really target. But going a pick earlier to the Jets, Nate, your Jets, I mean, I'm still not sold on Zach Wilson either. Yeah. I mean, it's like, why all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence, we know, can't argue that one, really. But Zach Wilson, I've not seen enough college football to know any better. But just on what I have seen and what I have heard and the history of quarterbacks, I'm like really feeling like the Jets could screw this one up again. So
I mean, he's already got an injury history, JB, including a shoulder. He played against, say what you want about what he does in the field, and some of the throws are spectacular, and he's mobile, and he can make those Mahomes-esque throws if you want that. But he's not doing it against the SEC or anyone like that. And I think a lot of this decision is financial, and it's getting the rookie quarterback back and having him on rookie wage scale for 5 years, and you build up the rest of it. And Robert Saleh saw that work. Well, I guess not with Garoppolo, but I mean, you see the big supporting cast around the 49ers when Garoppolo isn't necessarily the highest paid guy in the league. But I really thought the Jets would have been better served to trade out of this pick, get a bunch of great picks, get a premium player a little bit down the board, and support Sam Darnold, who I thought was a good player that just never really got a fair shake there because they never supported him with any good players. I would have done that too, JB. This is just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one with Sam Darnold. I mean, my goodness, give the guy a shot.
I did give him Rashawn Slater.
For sure. Yeah, like you said, Nate, trade down, get some more picks and a premium player. But all that's water under the bridge now as far as Sam Darnold's concerned. But we'll see how this one shakes out in time.
Yeah.
The thing with Wilson too is that he played behind a pretty good offensive line that gave him all the time in the world. And if you watch his film, he's just kind of sitting back there waiting for stuff to happen. And then he has the arm strength and he can whip it down the field where he's like, okay, a guy's going to be open. He just slings it down there.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a tough transition when he gets to the NFL and then when he gets in Florham Park, especially because that roster just,
No.
yeah.
That's one of the concerns that people had.
Yeah.
That's one of the concerns that people had is that, he kind of plays small in the pocket, when it's collapsing around him. He can move around and get out of it and make great plays, but.
Yeah. And like a Jimmy Garoppolo, is this guy going to stay healthy? I mean, is he really durable enough? We'll see.
All right. Well, I really want to thank you guys for taking time to join me here on the podcast and this mock draft. This is a lot of fun, and of course, all of our picks are going to be spot on. And everybody can thank us on Thursday night for telling them how it's going to go so they could go to bed early. So, all right. Thank you, guys. I will see you.
Appreciate you, Mike.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Hey, this is Joel Corey from Inside the Cap. I know you're enjoying Football Jones, hosted by Mike Jones, which goes in depth with coaches, executives, players, and NFL insiders. Once you're done with listening to Football Jones, check out my podcast, Inside the Cap, which explains the ins and outs of the NFL salary cap and player contract negotiations. So enjoy Football Jones, Inside the Cap, and other fine products brought to you by Ampire Media.
All right, thanks to the USA Today Sports gang for their help in bringing me this mock draft. It's going to be fascinating to see how this thing plays out. Obviously, quarterbacks are going to dominate it. Quarterbacks are going to shape this thing, but also some really interesting prospects and talented players that are going to be landing at various spots. So we will keep you posted. I'll be back next week with a reaction to the draft, and we'll break it all down, sift through all the wreckage, and see how we think these guys are going to do in their new homes. But thanks again for listening. You can read me again, usatodaysports.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByMikeJones. You can subscribe to this podcast, or you can watch it on YouTube. And thanks. Hope you have a great day.